Okay. So after looking at this list, you're supposed to work with a partner and make a new list and choose those that are composed of or why can't I say that word right? Are comprised of, cells. So I gave you a few examples. Hopefully you picked some of those and made some of your own. Let's see what you guys came up with. I don't know why. It's because I clicked on it there. So skin, yep. Pineapple, algae. Me, yep. Plant skin, algae. Pineapple, for sure. Wood, plastic. Not plastic. Oh, no cells. Actually, wood is made of cells, right? Like, you go to the store and buy a 4x4 from Home Depot, that is a pile of cells. Came from a tree, which is a multicellular organism, right? Now, they're dead cells, right? But they're still cells, okay? Bottle, no, yep, that's no cells. Cork is actually from a cork tree. That's made of cells. Some of the first cells that we saw under a microscope came from actually a cork tree. Hamburger would be chock full of cells, a bunch of cow cells, right? Yep. Just think about that. When you eat like a bite of meat, you're just chewing on piles of cells, right? And squishing the cells up and breaking the cells down. We're going to have turkey cells today, right? What'd you eat for dinner? Turkey cells. Turkey cell gravy, right? See if I get any new ones. So basically anything that was alive was made of cells. Oh, teeth, yep, those are cells, teeth cells. Those are called stratified columnar cells. That's a very special tissue that's only found in teeth. Algae, yep, these are all cells. Bones are cells. Anything living, yep, you got the idea. Uh-oh. See if there's anything different. Designer genes, okay. Actually, even your clothes, cotton cells, right? Yeah. Just looking for anything different. Okay, so you get the general idea. Jake from State Farm. Is that the guy that's in the commercials all the time? The do-do-do-do. State Farm is there? That one? Okay. Wolf, cat. Yep. You're going to see a lot of cats in here. Wolf. Okay. So today we're going to look at how cells were discovered and what the cell theory is. We'll start talking about cell size and shape. We will not get into eukaryotes and specialized functions of prokaryotes today because we're going to start an activity today. So we will not get through all of Section 1 notes. So to see a cell, you need that device in front of you called a microscope because it is microscopic, right? But microscope observations of organisms led to the discovery of the basic characteristics common to all living things. And we know now it's kind of like common knowledge that all living things are made of cells, but that didn't used to be common knowledge. And they first discovered cells back in the 1600s using crude microscopes. And when I mean crude, I mean like think of a paper towel tube with, you know, maybe a pair of eyeglasses on the top and a pair of eyeglasses on the bottom. That's essentially what they did. Two polished lenses, one on the top, one on the bottom, put together, and you got a microscope. So observations made by scientists using more powerful microscopes led, in the 1800s, led to the formation of what is called the cell theory. Let me just see if any of you can give me parts of the cell theory. What do you guys have for me? List one of the three statements in the cell theory. If you know them all, if you know all three, write them all down. You probably talked about this in middle school, hopefully a little bit. That's great. All right, cool. We're going to do a little bit of that. We'll learn more about what those organelles do in a very specific way in future chapters. We're going to spend whole chapters on like the mitochondria, whole chapters on the chloroplast, whole chapters on all of those complex respiration, both. This one? Not so much. I don't know. It's not too bad. Respiration and photosynthesis you might not like so much. That's other chapters, though. That's coming up pretty quick, though. It's not that you won't like it. It's just some of the harder material of the whole year. The chapter about photosynthesis and respiration. Right up there with that biochem chapter that you guys all loved. Well, chapter like 2. Yeah. Or 3. Yeah. 2 or 3. So you guys told me that all living things are made up of cells. That is the first part, right? So they regenerate. That's part of it. So you got like 2 parts. Cells. All living things are made up of cells. Cells in basic unit structure. Somebody copied that right out of the book, didn't they? All cells come from other cells. Perfect. That is the 3 parts of the cell 3. I don't under. What is? Oh, I forgot my jail jokes for cells. Yep. What is a nucleus and Saddam Hussein have in common? They're both in a cell, right? Yep. What is? Fetch isn't a thing and never will be. Cells are a thing. Okay. Kind of. So you need these 3 parts of the cell theory. Write them down. Take a moment. They're hard to remember off the top of your head. They really are. I always have to sit there and think about, I always forget one of them because they all are so closely tied to each other. But all organisms are composed of 1 or more cells. The cells are the basic unit of structure and function in an organism. And all cells come from other cells, basically, pre-existing cells. It evolved from from various different organelles, which would have been simpler subunits of the cell. So first there would have had to have been very simple structures that were already replicating on their own, like RNA and DNA, and then they would have accumulated inside of what is called a microsphere, also known as a micelle. We learn about that more in AP biology, how cells evolve and molecules evolve. But it is interesting. It kind of answers the question, where does life come from? But here we just study about cells, right? So if I were to ask you to regurgitate the 3 parts of the cell theory, this is what you would be expected to rattle off. All things are made of cells. Cells the basic unit of structure and function, and cells only come from other cells. Now, we'll say. Well, back when there was just primordial soup, they would have had to evolve from simpler molecules. Well, they're automatically attracted to each other by their nature and their creation in the Big Bang, right? So when all of these molecules were released, they started to bond and be attracted to each other in various ways. Okay? So you got the periodic table. We talk about bonding. That's why and how. If things bounce around in a container, Earth, for long enough, they're going to run into each other and start forming these. Okay? So cells vary greatly in their size and shape. All different sizes of cells. Bacterial cells are small. Our cells are generally pretty big. When I say big, I mean like 31 millionths of a millimeter. Pretty small, really, but still bigger than a bacterial cell. So a cell's shape reflects its function, and cell size is limited by what is called the cell surface area to volume ratio. You might want to even underline surface area to volume ratio. This is very, very important. Circle it, underline it. Cells can be branched, flat, round, or rectangular. If you were in anatomy, I would make you say, okay, well, they can be squamous, cuboidal, or columnar. Or they can be what is called transitional. And if I asked you this very simple question, what is more efficient, a small cell or a large cell? What is more efficient, a small cell or a large cell? I'm seeing small, large, small, 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 large, large, small, small. So I should have added those up, but I'm going to leave that out in the air for a minute. Cliffhanger. So you'll find out, don't worry. So all substances that enter or leave a cell must cross that surface of the cell. What do we call the surface of a cell? What do we call the surface of a cell? What do we call the surface? Like the fence that goes around the cell. What do we call that thing? All cells have one of these. Doesn't matter what you are. It's one of the requirements of being a cell. Cell membrane, for sure, right? So not a cell wall. Not all cells have a cell wall. Not necessarily cytoskeleton, but definitely a cell membrane surrounds the cell. Okay? Definitely the cell membrane. Oops. I accidentally clicked some buttons. So a cell's ability to move substances across its surface can be estimated by finding its surface area to volume ratio. So as a cell gets bigger, it becomes less efficient. Here's why. As this cell swells and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, the distance from the outside of the cell to the middle of the cell becomes greater, right? So it has to travel farther to get into the middle, and because this happens, it's not equally proportional to the cell growing. That means as a cell gets bigger, there's less membrane to take care of the cell, if that makes sense. So cells inherently are small. So cells with greater surface area to volume ratios can exchange substances more efficiently. So let me ask you this question. Thumbs up for going up, thumbs down for going down. As a cell gets bigger, what happens to its surface area to volume ratio? As a cell gets bigger, what happens to its surface area to volume ratio? As a cell gets bigger, what happens to its surface area to volume ratio? Put your answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, locking you out. So a lot of you went down, some of you went up. So we're going to answer this question in the lab. You're going to find out. I won't tell you right now. Okay? But as a cell gets bigger, something's going to happen to the ratio of the surface area to volume, the amount of cell membrane to the amount of volume that's in the cell. Okay. So as the cell becomes bigger, okay, we go from 1 to 2 to 4 millimeter sides. The surface area is going to get bigger. The volume is going to get bigger, but the ratio, something happens when you divide these numbers out. I'm not going to tell you yet unless you're a math whiz and just figure that out on your own. It's not that hard, really. Now, when comparing cells of the same shape, small cells have a greater surface area to volume ratio than large cells do. I meant to stop before I read that statement. Shoot. So small cells function more efficiently than large cells do. Now that the cat's out of the bag. But you're going to find this out in lab anyway. So as the cell gets bigger, you're going to find something about that outside compared to the inside, that they don't expand and increase at the same rate. Don't pick your neighbor's hair and groom them. It's kind of weird. I don't know. We're related to other primates, but we don't need to act like them. Okay. We don't, yes. That's okay. It's biology class. So one of the things we'll talk about this year. It's actually okay. Yes, they are now famous, but we don't know who they are, right? All right. So we're going to stop right here, okay? And we're going to start a lab activity.